We now arrive at the sacred tower of Arcane Grove, which has a link to the para-elemental plane of magic, which is where all magic originates from and funnels into our world. The master of the tower, Rized, begs us to investigate the observatory because the energy emitting from the gate linking the planes has changed somehow. Before being able to enter the astral plane, we're cut off by a mass of plants and chaos energy. This is the Chaos Lord Ledgermane. All of our attacks permeate through them, because Ledgermane isn't a physical being. They're actually the personification of mana energy itself that has been corrupted, and so they constructed themselves a new body, along with a developing personality. Ledgermane destroys the gate, removing our access from the realm, because they plan to awaken their chaos beast from the inside. Rized, realizing the danger, sends us to the ancient cloister that houses the sacred tree, which is the power source that connects our realm to the astral one. Upon arrival, we consult Awa, the tree keeper, and gradually restore power to the tree. Battling the Wendigo, we reconnect the power to the gateway. We see Ledgermane and Dracath discuss this revelation. Dracath is not phased, because the time bought will be enough to resurrect the mana golem chaos beast. But Ledgermane is starting to develop sentience and a conscience, and they feel our intrusion upon their realm is a disgrace to their being. Dracath reminds Ledgermane that they are merely a construct and their purpose is not to have opinions, and that Dracath can undo the power that gives them their physical form at any time. Ledgermane begrudgingly complies, but it's clear that a rift is starting to form between their ideologies. Returning to Rized, we discussed how we are going to defeat Ledgermane without being able to physically attack them, especially when in the para-elemental plane, Ledgermane will be able to draw from the infinite mana supply in there. Apparently, there once existed a weapon called the Supreme Arcane Staff that had the ability to bend magic in on itself. This weapon was split among the guardians of the elemental areas of the Arcane Grove region. With our new goal, we proceed to Mudlock Village, home to the first piece, the Rod of Defiance. Now, the next couple of sections don't have a lot of story to them. We're just doing tasks to get the staff pieces. So let's talk about potions and minigames while we quest. Potions use the 6th ability slot. They work how you would think, being consumable items that boost certain stats or decreases others. Potions are most often bought from NPCs, with some of them even costing ACs if they're really powerful. I don't really bother with potions at my level, but there's definitely a place for them with the hardest bosses or when needing to fight solo. There's even a dedicated potion brewing minigame where you combine materials and regulate a heat gauge to make a pump flow. No one really uses it because it takes too long when you can just buy the potions, but rarely you can get an Easter egg which gives you a nice achievement to display on your character page, along with all your other accomplishments. The game also offers other minigames outside the main quests, like fishing, where you can just chill and catch weird fish, or muglet punting, where you can kick the shit out of Twilly and see how far you can punt him. Gaining the first piece, Ledgermane warns Dracath of the staff's potential assembly and that it could kill them. Dracath assures them that we won't be able to complete the staff, but Ledgermane's fear of death won't allow them to continue on idly. They'll take matters into their own hands. Dracath, enraged, prepares to take away Ledgermane's free will, but is drained of his powers. The power Dracath holds is inherently based on magic infused with chaos, so Ledgermane is able to control it. Ledgermane thanks Dracath for his gift of life and promises not to harm him. Teleporting away, Dracath stares in disbelief. Perhaps he's made a mistake, a minor blunder if you would. We travel to the Natatorium to find the runes of Riparian. We incapacitate the Loch Ness monster that guards the piece, but while we swim away, the monster reawakens, ready to swallow us whole, until Dracath appears, annihilating the monster. It seems like we are in for an unwanted coalition. Next up is the Wraps of Gilead, found in the ruins of the Great Gilead. Battling the primeval elemental golems, we collect the wrap, only for Ledgermane to appear before us, exclaiming his defection from Dracath, and announcing his plan to cut off our world permanently from the para-elemental plane, so his mana can never be used by living beings to cause conflict. This has the side effect of completely destroying all life on Law, since mana is the life force in every creature. Ledgermane warns us not to interfere and teleports away. We've traveled to Mount Mafik to collect the final piece, a pure Chaos Ore crystal to power the staff. While getting insanely confused on this area's puzzle, let's talk about the puzzles in this storyline in general. This storyline highlights how the game uses puzzles as progression. They can really take any shape, usually just needing to be a brain teaser through memorization. I personally enjoy the implementation, but some puzzles are definitely on the tedious side, especially when you have to activate something on one screen and travel to another screen to determine if you did it correctly. Like the puzzle in Mudlock that requires us to activate switches that light up different lamps on the gate, so we'll have to travel back and forth to see which switches had switch effects. Try saying that 5 times fast. But anything that varies the gameplay from kill X amount of things is welcome. Killing the Guardian Drake, we start to absorb the gem's power, but Ledgermane appears, crushing the crystal, rendering it useless. In an act of desperation, we absorb the remaining fragments and hope it will be enough to defeat Ledgermane. We enter the paralemental plane of magic and battle our way through the mana constructs. We meet the awakened Chaos Beast, the mana golem, that has started to drain all the magic from lore to grow exponentially powerful. We destroy it and confront Ledgermane. Being able to attack them for the first time, the fight is rather simple, but after a period of time, they will start to charge a devastating attack that can be avoided by standing in the protection circle that lights up, so movement is key. We seize the opportunity to use the staff to destroy Ledgermane, but the staff truly does not have enough power from the shards to make the killing blow. Fortunately, Drakarth appears. Being the champion of chaos, he energizes the staff with his own powers to complete the fatal attack. Confused, we ask Drakarth for his motives to help us. Refusing to admit that Ledgermane was growing beyond control, Drakarth says that he only wanted to set an example that he is not to be disobeyed. We try to land a blow on Drakarth, but we are promptly swept aside. The power gap between us is still beyond imagination. Drakarth lets us go, saying he has big plans for us, and that we've already helped him more than we can imagine. This storyline is one of my favorites, conceptually and visually, but god is it a drag to complete. Multiple quests have huge requirements to kill dozens of enemies split across different zones. I'm pretty sure we revisit the cloister over 5 times for different quests, which can be fun, but becomes repetitive fast. Some of the puzzles were great, but I actually gave up on some of them and just looked up the solution instead of hammering my head to brute force the correct order. But the different villages, the theme of the 4 elements, the quest to collect the staff pieces, and the story of a rogue chaos lord that grows beyond the control of Drakarth powers is just so memorable. And the music, man. This has to go high A tier. It just needed some more streamlined quests to be S tier. Around this part in the story, AQW Worlds celebrated its 2nd birthday. And this one would be on an interdimensional scale. Unfortunately, as with the first event, the original maps are no longer accessible. They were retooled for a later release, but changed significantly. But fortunately, we can still watch the old cutscenes, so we'll have to do with those and some screenshots from around the time to document the experience. Preparing for the upcoming anniversary party, the musical guests, Paul and Storm, come through a wormhole to inform us that the greatest hero in the Mirror Realm, which is the mirrored version of our world, has requested our assistance. Accompanying them without questions, because of just how cool the concept sounds, we find ourselves in a reversed battle on, funnily enough called Battle Off. Incredibly, we also get voice acting just this once.
Actually, this is...
Welcome to Battle Off, hero.
We meet the mirrored version of Drakarth, now the Lord of Order, who is the greatest champion of this world. He explains the reverse roles of the major characters.
In your world, I'm sure King Altion is a kind and wise ruler. But on this side, he's an insane tyrant who threatens to destroy the world. A few months ago, his undead army marched into Gravelin the Good's fortress of Shadowhaven and imprisoned her.
Drakarth's 13 Lords of Order have been sealed away in a shadow prison, and Drakarth needs our help to free them. He explains that his champion powers allow him and others he is in contact with to travel to the mirrored world. but they need to switch place with their counterpart. So he can't bring anyone too powerful to help, at the risk of exposing the other world to a mirrored threat. Except for us, of course. Apparently, there is no known counterpart to our player character. So off we go to explore Battle Off, to find out how to free the Lords of Order. If you're intimate with Battle On, you'll get quite the kick out of exploring Battle Off, and its many references and subversion of how a mirrored version of the shops might look, from the real estate agency to the potion shop. Meeting up with the goofy scientist Wallach,
we found a spell in Cicero's library that might do the trick.
And the serious weapon breaker Cicero.
That is silly. Can we focus on the task at hand, please?
They send us on a quest to gather 3 artifacts that might break the Shadow Seal. The stolen blood crown from Queen Saphiria of the werewolves in Lightcovia Cave, feathers from the corrupted farm, and the Shadow Reaper of Doom from Altion's greatest champion, Undead Artix, being a counterpart to the fabled Blinding Light of Destiny. Acquiring 2 of the 3 artifacts with relative ease, we embark on Skullcrusher Mountain. Incapacitating Undead Artix, we free the currently known Lords of Order. We've got Charion with the Supreme Arcane Staff, some friendly looking twins, a pure Ledger main, and a rather lazily non-redesigned Kimberly. Because she's perfect as is. We return to our world and celebrate the anniversary, much to the dismay of Artix missing out on fighting himself.
I am so jealous of you!
What a great birthday event. They really went above and beyond to give some fan service and make the Mirror Realm as fleshed out as it could be for a single release. Definitely one of the best and most influential smaller releases in the history of AQ Worlds. As the next Chaos Lord approaches, we unlock a new part of the map to explore, the desert dunes of Sand Sea. But before we head off to the town of Oasis, there's this strange little area off to the side called Pencil Puddle. I wonder what that's all about. Greeted with the gradient of a real map transitioning to a crudely drawn sketch, we read an encryption from J6, the in-game intergalactic bounty hunter from AE's other game, MechQuest, but also the main background artist for AQ Worlds, who apologizes for not meeting his deadline and finishing the new release's map. As a solution, he threw together this gag map in the last minute as something to chew on while we wait for the actual release. It's kinda cute, and it even has sketchy enemies that drop likewise equipment. But what you wouldn't know is that this map holds a secret. Killing the dragon drops the temporary item called Try Again, so you try again, until something happens. Aha! A map. Perhaps J6 wasn't totally honest about missing the deadline after all, because this map leads to J6's secret hideout. But we can't read it without a Dwarkle decoder. Traveling back to Crash Site, we gather one and begin our search for the spot. Locating a green signal, we travel to the saloon in Sand Sea and ask the local residents for information about J6. Doing some menial tasks, we get to hear rumors about the fabled bounty hunter, until we find the man himself in one of the back rooms. He warns us not to get any closer, because we might be a spy out to turn him in for all his bounty hunter shenanigans. But we convince him that we are only interested in getting our hands on some cool sci-fi weapons. We answer his questions that correspond to the answers given by the saloon goers, and prove that we have good intentions. He gives us the coordinates to his secret spaceship. If we'd had answered him wrongly, he would have gunned us down in cold blood. Before we go though, it'd be smart to take this crystal in the oven beside him. Decoding the location on the map, we arrive at the Hyperium with automated defense turrets that'll need to be disabled by 2 players if we want to get in. One needs to disable the turrets from the control room with the crystal from the saloon, while another runs past them. Alternatively, you could with high enough evasion run past the turrets, but that requires either a very high level character or some luck along with costly potions. J6 congratulates us on boarding his ship, but he still wants to test us before he'll reward us with any items. His armory is hidden somewhere in the ship, behind a hidden wall activated with innocuous switches. If we find it, He'll even allow us to train in the VR room that simulates his previous adventures around the galaxy, recorded through his helmet. Finding the armory and getting our own bounty hunter suit, we experience a train heist through the shoes of J6 to collect some volatile crystals that were about to go critical. Additionally, we get access to bounties through the ship's navigation system HAL that compiles bounties from around lore. Completing bounties and collecting scattered VR missions across the world, we find ourselves in VR Mission 5, in a junkyard where J6 wants to collect something very important to him. Finding the item, which looks strangely like a nuclear bomb, the VR mission is interrupted by an interception from a certain man going by the name of Baron.
You... I'm hero.
His connection is poor, but through the static, we can infer that J6 is not to be trusted, and that he has plans to build something that'll detonate, and that something will happen to the galaxy if it does.
J6. Very dangerous. Plotting. And building. Detonates. Galaxy shredded.
The interception is terminated, and we return to J6, unsure if he is to be trusted or not, with the clear evidence from the VR missions. We complete more missions to see if we can find more evidence. J6 has experienced everything from Super Senkai inspired battles in Japan to medieval castle crashing, which makes us wonder just how old is J6 if he's been around for these wildly different time periods. He himself explains he was once sent into the future, and that lore is just extremely behind technologically. J6 is impressed by our combat abilities, and wants us to travel with him for an intergalactic journey. Gathering the necessary supplies, we are contracted by the Baron again, who wants us to deactivate HAL so he can sneak on board and take control of the ship before J6 actualizes his plot. Completing a memory game, and realizing that HAL can be deactivated by 2 simple claps. We confront J6 along with the Baron. J6 surrenders after finding out that the ship's defenses have been disabled. We pick up his guns, and the Baron orders us to shoot him. We refuse because we deem it unnecessary when he has already surrendered. The Baron offers us the whole ship and all the weapons on board if we comply, while J6 offers us a single peanut if we stay loyal. The choice seems obvious here. Ejecting the Baron out, J6 gives us a collection of VR discs that should explain why the Baron was out to kill him. If we'd had chosen to shoot J6, we would have unmasked him and found out he was just some random guy, I guess, while the Baron then proceeds to steal the ship and reset our progress with the questline. So yeah, not ideal. Loading the discs, we see a vigilante superhero version of J6 that seems to be talking with himself. He is killed by a Thug boss, but then proceeds to rise from the dead. He takes his helmet off and puts it on the Thug, seemingly transferring his consciousness to the Thug boss. He makes a eulogy for his previous buddy, and proceeds to lead the Thug army to steal a spaceship they found. This was how J6 got the Hyperium. Betraying the Thugs, J6 is interrogated by HAL before he plugs his data into him, which instantly convinces him that J6 is worthy of stealing the ship, with his wealth of knowledge from multiple lifetimes. The final disc reveals that J6 is in fact a combat helmet designed to enhance the human abilities and make anything into a deadly weapon. His first host was Tyrone McAllister, a scientist who created the helm for the Inertia army, but got cold feet. Being tracked down by the army and about to be gunned down, Tyrone puts on the helmet and merges with J6, who helps him escape. Now, with his newly acquired sentience, J6 travels from host to host, helping them with his combat prowess in exchange for their body. The Baron was a host at one point, who J6 needed to eject from before finishing his contract, so he's just a bitter old man not worth a damn. Finishing the VR missions, and now understanding J6, we arrive at the planned location where J6 asked us to install his head on the bomb-looking device. With a shadow of doubt from what's about to happen, we watch as the machine activates and begins to unfold into a new purely mechanical body for J6 to live in. He's grown tired of the adventures. He's watched hosts grow old or die along the years, but with this body, he can be independent permanently. He grants us his ship and any weapons on board, and we return to our own solar system. I think this story is really unique, and not like anything from the Chaos Saga, likely because it's heavily inspired by MechQuest. The mystery of J6 is planned really well, with having to uncover his location and ship in an ARG-like fashion, and the mystery seeming like it could go any direction. J6 being a symbiote who will work for anyone willing to offer up their body makes him morally grey and really interesting in my opinion. I don't like the pacing of the story though. When the final boss of the story is some random street thug, a proper gameplay climax would have done wonders. So because of that, it gets a well-deserved A. Oh, and also a quick note, in between these two storylines, there was a Control-Alt-Delete crossover around this time.
I'm Ethan from the webcomic Control-Alt-Delete.
You know, the last guy. Yeah. Gaming.
Game Haven. Video games, fellow gamer. Gaming world games. Gods of gaming. You have to help me!
In the Sand Sea region of Dragon Fable fame, a storm settles in the desert of the Oasis, revealing the adjacent once hidden dynasty of the Sekduat Pyramids. Meeting up with Zoom, real-life programmer of the game and Sand Elf Master Ranger, we begin tracking a third-rate mage named Zahart, who might have something to do with the sudden storm. Battling Sand Shark, thieves and sellswords, we find Zahart in the old port. Questioning his involvement, he reveals that it was caused by a jinn, or genie in the common tongue, which are powerful otherworldly wish-granting spirits. The weak ones are bound to objects in our world, while the most powerful ones are summoned directly from the jinn realm using magic rings. He summons the malignant chaos jinn, Tibizinas, which instantly overpowers us. We are saved by Zoom at the cost of Zahart escaping. Realizing that the power of the jinn is unbeatable, we seek the knowledge of Zoom's nemesis, the immortal tyrannical ruler of the previous Sansi dynasty, Sekduat himself, as he might know more about the nature of the jinn realm. Isolating himself in his underground pyramids, we find Sekduat in hiding from Zahart's ambitions. As we confront him, he tries to escape on his magic carpet, but we trap him and begin our interrogation. Sekduat isn't cooperating, but his fear of Tibizinas makes him buckle, so he reveals that the power of a jinn is only rivaled by the power of another. And so, we journey to the Cave of Wonders, with Sekduat's guidance to find a jinn bound to our world. Wandering the twisting cave, we uncover a lamp which a jinn has been bound to, but Sekduat reveals his true intentions and tries to take the lamp for himself. He blasts Zoom to the edge of a cliff, and in the confusion, both Zoom and us fall to our demise, while Sekduat attains the power of the jinn and claims his title as the God King of Sand Sea. Or so he thinks, because we had planned for his betrayal, so we poisoned him with dream mist that makes him hallucinate his deepest desires, while we sneak out the cave with the lamp. We summon the good jinn Zahir, who explains the origin of Tibizinas. He was part of the evil ghoul jinns, as opposed to Zahir, who is a good Marid jinn. Tibizinas was cast out by the Ifrit, king of the jinns, for playing with chaos magic. In the other end of Sand Sea, at Zahart's usurped castle, his slaves managed to find the one item that can summon his chaos beast, the heart of the Sphinx. Mercilessly killing the slave afterwards, he awakens his chaos beast, while we prepare to storm the castle with our newfound jinn companion. While doing filler quests at the castle, let's talk about mid-game classes. At this point in the game, I've collected a good slew of classes to help me optimize my gameplay, and that's because they all serve different functions. The community has split the different classes up to main roles and secondary roles, those being offense, defense, soloing, support, farming, and PvP. For example, the classes I mostly use are Shaman, which is a great farmer because it has low cooldown abilities that hit multiple targets, but is also decent at soloing because it has a weak heal over time and a costly high damage ability. But compared to Timeless Darkcaster, which stacks damage over time to greater effect the larger the boss's health pool is, then it'd be better at soloing. A class like Arch Paladin is amazing at lowering incoming damage and debuffing monsters, so it's one of the best supporters, while Hawk Evader focuses on having a ridiculously high dodge chance to never take damage, so it's more defense focused. Some classes are definitely designed with PvP in mind, like Vindicator of Day, which can freeze your opponent. Most of the classes in the game are unusable at higher levels, so they've designed the game with the progression path in mind, in accordance with the story and how difficult the classes are to obtain. With the system, you'll be changing classes quite often, so you won't get tired of using the same abilities, and feel accomplished because you've worked hard to upgrade your class. Battling the Sphinx, we turn it back to its hibernating state. Sahad tries to escape to the Gen Realm, but Zoom, with the True Shot, destroys the ring controlling Tibicinus, unleashing his free will. Tibicinus reveals that he is the true Chaos Lord, and he just needed Sahad to bring him to the human realm so he could summon his Chaos Beast, expecting Sahad to lose control of him eventually. With his deal with Drakarth complete, he is free to usurp Ifrit and become king of the Jinns, but first he'll take Sahad as a puppet and exact his revenge on him. Using the power of our Jinn, we travel to the Gen Realm to confront Tibicinus. Sahir, even at full power in the Gen Realm, is instantly obliterated by Tibicinus, now having to wait 1,000 years to be reborn. The Ifrit realizes the danger of the situation and needs us to make a wish on his behalf to utilize his full power. We wish for Tibicinus to be stripped of his Jinn abilities, so we can battle him in his raw chaos form. The Tibicinus fight is interesting. It starts out normal, but when he goes down to half health, all his attacks put you down to 1 HP, but he can only kill you at exactly 1 HP. So the strategy is to either dodge every attack or find a way to passively heal a small amount over time. When Tibicinus gets down to 1/4 HP, he starts going berserk and his attack speed increases. With the ghoul defeated, the Ifrit thanks us for our efforts and sends us back home safely to Sansi. With the Sektuar trapped in his mind and Sahad imprisoned, Sansi is left without a ruler. We vote for Zoom, last of his people, to guide Sansi, and the populace agrees. This was an alright storyline. It didn't resonate much with me because I haven't played Dragon Fable, so I didn't quite understand all the references, but I think the setting is very well realized. I especially liked the focus on the mythology of the Jinn, which mirrors real life. The story flowed nicely, but the quest design was miserable though. Every single quest was kill X amount of enemies, and they really wanted you to kill over 20 monsters for a single quest at some points. This is still solid though, so I'll give it a high C. Being halfway done with the Chaos Lords, a completely new threat suddenly rises. King Altion has requested a meeting with us, Artix, Cicero and Beline. He wants to tell us that he has given up on finding a cure for his chaos infection, and that it spreads more every day. He wants us to promise that the day he falls, we'll continue the truce between good and evil, and defeat Drakarth if he is not around to witness it himself. We agree, but Altion also has a different concern. He's heard rumors of someone having reopened the Necropolis, the central hub of necromancy and the dark arts, at the heart of Doomwood, the undead forest. He wants us to travel to the Lightguard Keep checkpoint that borders Doomwood and Greengard. We accept, but Altion wishes for us not to tell Artix, even though he's the most revered undead slayer. He harbors a secret unbeknownst to him that may jeopardize the investigation. We make our promise and travel to Lightguard Keep, where we meet up with the battle trainer Arid, who deploys us in the forest to investigate the missing troops and battle the undead. At the edge of a cliff, we find one of the missing paladins, but impossibly, he has been transformed into an undead, which normally paladins would be protected from because of their light-based magic. Slaying him, Arid recognizes that something beyond their understanding is going on. Crafting a rather convincing undead disguise, we infiltrate their ranks and place a teleporting stone so we can make an ambush later. Before placing the stone though, we get a feeling of dread. It couldn't have been that easy, and as we say that, we are witness to a lone paladin battling a never before seen Doom Knight. This amalgam of skulls and darkness is called Vordred. Not only does he appear to be immune to light-based attacks, but he can also transform any living creature into an undead. we witness him convert the paladin, exclaiming that he has now killed all the known high paladins, except for the final one, Artix. We try and run, but are caught by Vordred, who proceeds to turn us into his undead slave. Arriving at Lightguard Keep, now a skeleton, we attack the guards, but are stopped in a flash of darkness by an unknown person. This person of course being Vale the Necromancer, an old enemy of Artix of Dragon Fable fame, who blames him for the death of her brother. She uses her power of necromancy and a spirit shard to transform us back. She still wants revenge on the paladins, but Vale was the previous master of the necropolis, until Vordred kicked her out and installed his master. Without Vale, the undead are no longer under her control, so we'll need to cooperate to thwart Vordred's new master. Artix hears wind of the situation in Doomwood, and wants to battle this ultimate Doom Knight to avenge his fallen paladin brothers. But we trick him by saying that his shoes are untied, and throw him into prison. We travel to the Undead Mall to seek guidance from Sorbak, in a Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back parody. Battling the consumers wanting to buy Valve games for a cheap price, Sorbak Somboda informs us that Vordred's master is located at the Necro Tower, which serves as an entry exam hub for learning the dark arts. With the preface of learning necromancy, we apply by stealing a student ID and reading up for the exam as we commence a necromancy minigame, where we have to guide our skeleton to the lever so we can ascend higher in the tower without falling into the many pitfalls hidden around the stage. The last stage is an absolute nightmare, by the way. We learn the identity of the voice that has been harassing us on our journey up the tower, this being Sally, who also originates from Dragon Fable.
That's right! I am the Supreme Necromanstress, Sally!
Her village of Moonridge was destroyed in an undead invasion orchestrated by Vale. Sally, being one of the few survivors, became lonely, so she tapped into her innate necromancy to create her own friends to play with. Before she knew it, she had attracted the attention of the long-dead undead master. The voice guided her to the necropolis, where she resurrected the original creator of the Doom weapons that would corrupt Sepulture, who in turn also created his undead army, that being Noxus. He was the one who guided Sally to bring Vordred into existence. Wanting to learn more about how to defeat Vordred, Sally, unbeknownst to her, enrolls us into the Necropolis University of Necromancy, where we become a fully fledged master of the dark arts. While studying, by killing hundreds of enemies of course, we can discuss housing. There is a dedicated button on the toolbar to take you to your house. If you don't currently own a house, you'll be sent to the Centaur 21, which is a hub for buying basic houses and furniture. There's a very small selection, and an even more pitiful one if you aren't a member. But luckily, the most desirable houses and house items are always found from other dedicated vendors throughout the world or dropped by monsters. Selecting your house, you can place your furniture wherever it allows and customize your room to your liking. Some house items even come with special quests that gives you items. You can also join other people's houses by typing /house followed by the house ID. Houses can act like meeting places for groups or just to show off your interior design skills. Some of the developers' avatars even have their own unique houses that can be fun to explore. A particular example being the previous AE player support employee, Zazul. His house was a collection of puzzles, mazes, traps, and minigames, and the allure of exclusive items behind a resource that wasn't actually in the game. Seems like he's the type that enjoys a mild amount of tomfoolery. Learning from our teachers that undead are linked to the powers of the elemental plane of darkness, and that Vordred is attuned by the plane's master to become the next champion of darkness, we now know the method, but not the motive. Even the teachers don't know why he wants to slay Artix, just that it will complete his ascension. We bump into Sally in the hallway, who is accompanied by Noxus. We use our slick talking skills to convince Noxus to explain more about Vordred's creation. We learn that the knowledge of the darkness plane was found in a tome found at the bottom of the Temple of Light. Coercing the map to the temple from Noxus, we embark down the 20-level dungeon and slay the Draco Lich at the bottom to uncover the massive tome. Meanwhile, Vordred has breached the Lightguard Keep and reaches the jail where Artix is locked. but fortunately he escaped 20 minutes earlier on his own, ironically because he wanted to fight Vordred. He left without his axe though, which was still in Vale's possession. Vordred grabs the axe, only for it to burn his hand. Vale and Vordred come to understand the true nature of the blinding light of destiny. It isn't made of light, as it is just a regular iron axe, but it is surrounded by the spirit orbs from the freed souls of the undead slain by Artix, who chose to stay by his side and aid him. To make the axe appear gold, it is estimated that over 1 million spirits must be surrounding the axe. Vordred bites through the pain and consumes the axe, transforming it into its antithesis, the Shadow Reaper of Doom, also seen wielded by undead Artix in the Mirror Realm. Back in the tomb, we are not able to read the book because it is written in an ancient dragon language. The book of lore that we carry around, which you might remember is sentient, says that it can consume written word and learn of its content. It eats the entire book and explains some of its otherworldly knowledge. It says that the Champion of Darkness is an extension of the Darkness Plane, which exists outside of lore. It is one of multiple other elemental planes, which are constantly at war with one another. The planes comprise worlds that have been consumed by the elements, and the Darkness Plane wishes to add lore to its territory. Only through balance has lore survived not being integrated with the other planes. The elemental champions are envoys sent by their planes to mark their territory. Draghard is the champion of chaos, but the other champions are currently unknown. We theorize that Vordred wants to slay Artix because he must be the champion of light. This is further confirmed when Artix finds us at the temple, and we see firsthand how Artix is able to use the light without any magical affinity by using the spirit orbs. Artix, Beline, Cicero and us travel to the necropolis to confront Vordred and Noxus with our newfound knowledge, but it is empty. Noxus has invaded Shadowfall with his army and plans to overthrow Gravelyn. Gravelyn scoffs at him. Her army outnumbers him by over 100, but Noxus, being the original creator of that very army, takes control and imprisons Gravelyn in another reference to Star Wars. We travel to Shadowfall to help our Empress, while Vordred travels back to Doomwood to take part in something called the Arg Attack experiment. Noxus mocks Gravelyn, calling her unworthy to rule, when not a single undead serves her. But this is when Gravelyn's counter-attack begins. She seizes the opportunity while Vordred is gone and uses the power of her one loyal servant, Chuckles of course. Getting a surprise attack on Noxus, Gravelyn replaces Noxus's head with Chuckles, cutting off his control of her army and rendering Noxus defenseless. With Shadowfall taken care of, we travel to Castlemania to take part in the Arg Attack experiment, which is another musical guest appearance event. The band members are threatened to use their powers of electricity and music to empower Vordred. We help them by cranking up the voltage of the power convergence, with the hope of overloading Vordred, killing him permanently. Our efforts are for naught though, because Vordred survives the ensuing power surge, becoming stronger than ever and gaining lightning powers and shit. Yeah, a real bonehead move on our part there. We've reached the finale. Vordred scours Doomwood in search of Artix, finding him surrounded by an army of crippled skeletons. This finale has a ton of different possible endings, depending on what character we ask Cicero and Beline to call upon. Or we could just choose to betray Artix, creating a joke zombie apocalypse ending. In any case, we battle alongside Artix when he uses every single spirit orb he has to create a dragon spear to pierce Vordred. The attack doesn't even stretch him, and Vordred raises his army back up. We discuss plan B with Artix, but he's apparently still on plan A, because the spirit orbs Artix command have a very special property. They can't be affected by darkness once they've been consecrated. The millions of spirits consumed by Vordred attack him from the inside, peeling away the constantly growing layers of skulls around him, revealing his vulnerable darkness core. Vordred has had enough and tries to turn Artix undead. It doesn't work though. It must be because the Champion of Light is immune, but Vordred corrects us. He must be immune because Artix is the current Champion of Darkness. He was sent to destroy this world, but he was found by Lady Celestia and trained as a paladin, never awakening his powers over darkness. Vordred unleashes his full power, conjuring a massive shadow clone, we see no other option than for Artix to awaken his own darkness powers, conjuring a dragon to combat Vordred. Artix succeeds in subduing Vordred to the core, with the character you called upon getting the final hit in on him. The day is saved, and the sun rises once again over Doomwood. Truly a happy ending. Well, at least not for Sally, but she gets a surprise visit from the craft, bringing her Vordred's head, and lends her the power of chaos. Perhaps the terror of the necropolis isn't over just yet. So that's Doomwood Part 1. What a huge story. And I'm just gonna say it immediately, this is S tier. Easily. It's got everything. Cool setting, badass villain, multiple factions taking part, huge lore revelations, musical guest appearances, and a banger ending that keeps you guessing. This is the essence of AQ Worlds in a single saga, and this was just part 1. Before heading off to the next arc, it is worth noting at the conclusion of the Doomwood saga that something even more malicious has been brewing in Teresa Notlam. Meltonius is undergoing a transformation, and he prepares to settle the score with his old nemesis once and for all. The metamorphosis results in his true archfiend form being unleashed, now going by the name Nulgath. We'll see what becomes of this development later. Before going to the next part of the Chaos Saga, a bunch of smaller storylines were released concurrently with it, so I'll lump them all together in this segment. The first one we'll be looking at is the return of one of the most fabled villains in AE's catalogue. It's Sand time, baby! Having been trapped by Sand at the bottom of the Bassani volcano because we were dumb enough to click the button to start his saga, we get to have a slow death to lure in Sand's mortal enemy, Warlick. As he predicted, Jimmy the Eye appears, relaying Warlick's message that he'll help us escape. We escape our bind and travel up the volcano to meet Warlick in person. Warlick explains that Sand, previously known as Alexander, was once a close friend to Warlick, but an accident nearly killed Alexander, burning him alive. Warlick, young and naive, tried to save him by turning the flame properties into healing flames. The fire still causes pain, but they act like life support to keep him alive. The constant pain made Sand turn into the insane pyromancer he now is today, with the burning desire to take revenge on Warlick. Traveling down the volcano into the engulfed town of Bassani, we travel in search of the town's missing children, who are trapped in a windmill behind the invading fire elementals spawned by Sand. Apparently, Sand hasn't directly hurt anyone in the village, he's just separated them into 2 groups. We confront Sand about this fact, and he explains that he wants a protege who he can make as insane as him. Sand pulls a real Joker move and decides to let the kids pick who will be his apprentice, in exchange for him leaving the town and taking his elementals with him. The de facto leader of the kids picks his own mom, as she would probably have sacrificed herself for him. Sand escapes with the mom into the underground ruins of Sherpo, located under the town. Warlick has heard rumors of the ruins holding great powers, but is surprised that Sand had planned this attack directly above it. Investigating the caverns below, we find a locked library containing the pyromancy research from the previous inhabitants. It seems the ruins is home to the Ring of Sherpo, a pyromancy artifact that can boost one's fire abilities tenfold. This must be what Sand is after, so we scavenge the library to find the location before Sand either finds it himself or permanently damage the mom he has taken hostage. We find the ring inside the Sherpo Guardian construct. With this ring, Warlick could potentially defeat Sand himself, so we confront the mad pyromancer. Sand never planned to get an apprentice. He just wanted leverage for the ring. Warlick doesn't really care about saving the mom, because he knows the ring will make Sand unstoppable. But we convince Warlick to let go of the ring, because it would only make him as bad as Sand. Cackling maniacally, Sand adorns the ring and seals it on his finger so no one can remove it. He then commences to launch an annihilating fire attack upon us. But nothing happens. Using at least 2 of our brain cells, we travel to Asterian's tower and use the Staff of Inversion to reverse the magical properties of the ring, making your fire magic 10 times weaker. Additionally, the seal San casted upon the ring also got reversed, so now he won't be able to take it off of himself. We leave San be, as he is now harmless, and tend to the city. This is an alright mini-arc. Short and sweet, you know. San is really good, and lives up to his legacy from Dragon Fable, and the solution was a good callback to an already established location and power in the world of lore. Although I do feel like the town plot was kind of throwaway, so I'll settle on C tier for this one. This would probably be a good time to talk about treasure chests. If you've been paying close attention to the footage, you might have seen me get a drop called Treasure Chest every once in a while. It was a feature introduced around this time in the game's development. The item has a 0.75% chance to drop from any killable monster in the game. Its purpose is to be opened for either 200 adventure coins or 2 times per month freely for members. The chest contains over 200 unique items that you can't get anywhere else. You can't get the same item twice, so if you are persistent enough, you would eventually be able to get an item that you really wanted. Some notable drops include the sword altars for your house, including the Calitbolt altar, which gives you a quest to get the Calitbolk, which is Stage the Evil's signature weapon. The Dark Key and Dark Box, which unlocks an entire obscure fetch quest chain to get some dope gear. Legion gear, Nation gear, MechQuest themed gear, Mafia gear, Ninja gear, and my personal favorite, the Sanctified gear. This is definitely akin to cases in Counter-Strike and supply crates from Team Fortress 2, so it's basically gambling. With that being said, it's also right about time to celebrate the 3rd year of AQ Worlds. This time, the event is actually accessible in its original state. Sort of. It was re-released with new musical guest appearances, but it's virtually the same. Dozing off under a tree, we are approached by 2 hooded figures who rather unconvincingly try to make us walk to the right to save a village from a dragon or whatever. So we of course decide to go to the left, straight into a trap. We wake up in a strange glass dome and are greeted by the Collector, an interdimensional being who collects heroes who have great destinies to display them in their mint condition at his terrarium. Inside, we are also greeted by Will and Fred from the band Wild Dragons. Originally, this was John F. and John L. from the band They Might Be Giant, which is the better band in my opinion. And also, Kid Rakath is here. And yes, we do consider murdering him in cold blood, even if he is just a child. Building a makeshift catapult to break the glass, we fire, but to no avail sadly. The Collector shows up after all the ruckus, with doppelgangers of Will and Fred to replace them, because they apparently can't sing very well anymore. Drakath notices that the Collector seems to operate by using the device around his neck, known as the Vigilette. We fend off the doppelgangers and rebuild the catapult, with the intention of launching ourselves through the portal when the Collector comes to replace the fallen doppelgangers with new ones. We succeed in grabbing the device, but are unable to operate it. We push random buttons in a scramble and land in prehistoric times. Dropping the device somewhere during the fall, and with the Collector hot on our tail, we battle the dinosaurs who have the Vigilette and try our luck operating it again. The Collector tries to grab the device from us, which scrambles the location yet again, this time landing us in a dystopian future and completely breaking the Vigilette. The Collector scurries back to remake it, but needs a piece of the original, so we collect all the missing pieces while battling aliens and cyborgs until we can bargain our freedom with the Collector, resulting in a final confrontation with him. We reassemble the Vigilette and try once and for all to go home, only for the home button to lead us back inside the terrarium. The Collector laughs. He got what he wanted, but little does he know that the Collector of Collectors has collected the Collector. Yeah! Now being stuck in a case himself, and not being able to escape with his time and space traveling powers, we give the Vigilette to Will and Fred, who correctly uses it to send us back to lore, including Drakath to his own timeline, who thanks us and wishes he could be just like us in the future. Real cute, until he says just like us means having the power to defeat anyone who would ever hurt him, no matter the cost. We land back on lore, but slightly before us in the past was sent to the terrarium, so we ask Will and Fred to walk over to us and convince us to get captured so we don't create a time paradox, which explains the 2 robed men in the beginning. This was a really good event in my opinion. Definitely not as grand as the second birthday, but I really liked the collector's design, and Kid Drakarth was good fan service. There's some slight commentary about the collector representing the community collecting rare items just to have them sit in their bank for all eternity, never to fulfill their purpose. But it doesn't come across as bitter or anything. It's just an interesting observation. This event is also notable for introducing the swag tokens. Yeah, this was the 2010s. Which could be turned in for a huge reputation boost among the main factions of the different ones found in the Chaos Saga. This made farming so much easier and was definitely the best spot at the time to farm these reputations. The last noteworthy mini-event in this section is the New Year's Eve release of 2011. We travel to the New Year's lab with the scientist Lim from the academy where we also brew potions. He's built a New Year's Eve ball, but it stops halfway down the pole at the influence of a chronomancer, who are people with the ability to control time and correct the course of history if it went awry. Apparently, this chronomancer is called Ayadoa and was once a student at the academy with Lim, until he got lost in a time stream and wandered infinity for centuries. In the rift, he came to understand time and how to bend it, but he also found chaos, and came to understand both it and Drakarth's ambitions. Being corrupted by chaos, planning to mess with the flow of time, we battle him. Being a chronomancer, he should be otherworldly powerful, but he then decides to leave all of a sudden, leaving behind a piece of his equipment that could commence time again so that we may celebrate New Year's Eve. Just what was his endgame here? Only time will tell. With Doomwood, San, and the others taken care of, a centuries-old conflict is brewing in the Blood-Tusk Ravine between the Troll and the Hawk tribes. Currently living with relative peace, their dichotomy and old blood feud is rising once again because of the predictions from their deity Twin Watchers that a Chaos Lord will rise in one of the tribes, with both races accusing each other of using the power of chaos to conquer the ravine for themselves. In this storyline, you need to choose which faction to work for. They are very similar story-wise, just playing from different points of view. But for this playthrough, I've chosen to side with the Trolls, but I'll interject the counterpart when relevant. The Troll side of the ravine is lavish, reminiscent of Greek architecture with philosophy, dancing, and culture being core principles, while the Hawks are brutish people, but are the original inhabitants of the ravine, and hold honor, honesty, equality among the genders, and spoken history of the people very highly. There exists multiple crossbreed trolls and hawks, most importantly being the One Who Answers, a blessed oracle said to possess boundless knowledge of both the past and visions of the future. Working with the troll people, we request to attune with the Twin Watchers to learn more about the prophecy of the next Chaos Lord. We consult the local sibling prophets, Cassandra, the bitter and miserable dreamer of tragedy, and Krellinos, the jovial prophetic visioneer. We gather the ingredients and get the blessing from the One Who Answers by answering 20 questions to test if we've truly understood both factions' history, culture, and perspective. As we summon the Twin Watchers, we find out just who they've been praying to all this time. The Chaos Twins. With their guidance, mutual destruction is assured. But by the power of the eclipse, they are bound to truthfully answer 5 of our questions. They managed to use semantics to give us 3 useless answers, but we do uncover some very important information. We learn why Shang no longer gives good advice. She was replaced by the Mirror Realm version of her, by Drakarth tapping into the Chaos Champion powers, like the mirrored version of Drakarth did. Furthermore, we learned that the 9th Lord of Chaos is already active and is manipulating everyone to go to war. It could be anyone.
It could be you. It could be me. It could even...
Ethan from Control-Alt-Delete.
We exclaim that we'll tell the Hawks and Trolls what we just learned, but the twins assure us that they won't listen. They're too caught up in their own pride and prejudice to admit that their gods work for chaos, or that their side might harbor the Chaos Lord. The time for war draws near, and both sides begin battle. We try to minimize the casualties, but to no avail, all while chaos is seeping into the very nature of their ravine. And the troll Antiphus succumbs to chaos, losing his mind and becoming a raging beast. Slaying him, the trolls blame the Hawks for hosting the root of chaos, and being the reason they had to lose their brother. The war in the ravine has not gone unnoticed by the alliance of good and evil. The Hawks and trolls are part of the alliance, and by warring, they've broken the truce. At the risk of the resources the ravine holds being compromised by chaos, Altion and Graveland both sent their armies to try and sanction off both factions, introducing a lockdown and confiscating their weapons. While investigating the disappearance of the ore deposits and ravine treasures, I feel like now is an appropriate time to discuss cheating in this game, considering that this storyline is tied to my own personal experience with using third-party tools to give myself an advantage. AQ Worlds being run on the Flash engine was apparently really easy to crack back in the day and run your own code so you could bend the game to your will. Most of these exploits have become a lot harder with added security, but this is what we were able to do back in the day. Of course, I gotta add the massive preface that I do not condone cheating in this game, especially because the team usually straight up deletes your account or, I kid you not, make you write a convincing apology essay if you're caught. I'm just documenting a part of the game's history. Firstly, it allowed me to load any quests or shop windows from a remote command console, meaning that I didn't have to travel to specific maps, saving me time, and that I could access shops that were no longer accessible, giving me access to rare items. Secondly, and most importantly, I could start pre-programmed macro key presses that would automate farming for experience, gold, reputation, legion tokens, Nulgath resources, you name it. Frequently referred to as botting. I used this program on my alternate account to get rank 10 Hork to get the Hawk Evader class, among other smaller farms because I was too lazy to do it myself. Eventually, I stopped because I was caught by other players and got scared of losing my account. Botters are very easy to spot, especially in popular areas tied to endgame farms, never leaving the room or teleporting from place to place. I don't blame people for botting, because some farms are legitimately mind-rotting. Botters often keep areas alive by helping with rather difficult bosses, even if they're not there doing the key presses themselves. But of course, it kinda ruins the online interaction portion of the game, when no one is there to respond to you or interact with you. Feeling hopeless and betrayed, the people of the ravine get more scared and desperate, and have now become susceptible to the influence of chaos, beginning to fight amongst themselves, questioning who the Chaos Lord is. What's worse is that the generals of good and evil are also being influenced by the Chaos Twins to make more extreme decisions to please their rulers. This truly boils over when the Hawks and Trolls agree to attack the Alliance and a bloodbath ensues. We aid the people of the ravine because we realize that the Alliance has become compromised by chaos. We drive off the Alliance and focus on strengthening the cooperation between the Hawks and Trolls. It is now that the true Chaos Lord reveals himself to have been the all-so-likable Krellinos this entire time. This betrayal weighs heavy on Cassandra. She always knew in her heart through their link that chaos was seeping in her brother, but she always doubted her own dreams because they always held the grim potential futures of tragedy. Now alone, she has reached her limit and is about to explode. We confront Krellinos at the sacred ancient temple. He tries to awaken his Chaos Beast at the Shakar Needle, which is connected to the living Arashtide ore, which would in turn corrupt the very spirits of each and every Hawk and Troll. We launch an all-out assault on him with the full might of the ravine working together, before he is able to enact his schemes. Driving him off, he manages to kidnap the Alliance generals. Tracking him down into the main ore cavern below the ravine, he plans to kill the Alliance generals and pin the murder on our hero, because we have already proven ourselves to take active part in the rebellion of the ravine against the Alliance. Krellinos completes the corruption of the ore and awakens his Chaos Beast, the Naga Boss. Battling the beast with its petrifying laser rays, we confront Krellinos, but Cassandra arrives, and reprimands her brother for abandoning her. She uses their soul link as twins to transfer the power of chaos into herself, rendering her brother powerless. Realizing her newfound might, and that people have always been degrading her, she exacts revenge on her brother for being so well liked by killing him. Mad with power and grief, she now wants to destroy the being who caused this mess, Drakarth himself. Unleashing her full power, she shifts reality and manages to manifest her dream world into reality, which functions as a nexus to travel to other worlds, including the Chaos Plane where Drakarth resides. Following Cassandra, we watch her confront Drakarth. Her power is no match, and Drakarth refuses to kill her, giving us the choice to leave a Chaos Law wandering law or kill her to ensure that she won't interfere with the current peace in the ravine. In a true chaotic fashion, it's our choice to make. We battle Cassandra, who has the ability to temporarily lock one of our abilities, which makes the fight rather tricky if your class is dependent on using one specific or all of your abilities. Before finishing Cassandra off, we are convinced by her plea to work together to end Drakarth. We decide to let her go, but promise her that we'll end her if she bows to the ways of chaos again. Returning to the ravine, we discuss what happened, and the example set by Cassandra to battle chaos despite being the embodiment of it, which inspires the people of the ravine to work together despite the corruption of the Arashtide Ore, which will in time corrupt everyone's spirit. With the combined efforts of their talents and trade, they will find a new way to live. This storyline is easily the longest and most complex in the Chaos Saga so far, and that comes with a huge risk, because it might feel bloated, hard to understand, or boring. But I'm happy to say that I think this has been one of the best storylines so far. Being fundamentally a political story of multiple factions and the consequences of breaking treaties, the story almost turns into a Game of Thrones-like plot where it's hard to predict where the story will go and who is working together with who. It turns into a tragedy that you just love to see unfold because everyone keeps making the wrong decisions for the right reasons. Unfortunately, it was kind of abysmal to play through. Having 35 very demanding quests in both nearly identical factions leaves me feeling quite fatigued. If one of the areas were cut or there was less filler quests, this would have been S tier, easy, but I will have to give it top of A. And so it came. The date is the 11th of November 2011, and a portal opens outside of Greengard Forest. So of course we enter and investigate it. Landing in a strange realm, we are greeted by a Dravix named Sidir, which is a prophet of the Dragon Realm. He's a servant of the great dragon Desaloth, which is so ancient that the people of lore only know of him as a children's legend. Sidir explains that the dragon is indeed very real and is currently being wrongfully imprisoned by the Dragon Plane's 4 elemental dragons. For the past 800 years, they've held him captive and are nearly complete in permanently sealing him away. Sidir opened the 11-11-11 gate with the hope of a mortal helping his master be freed. He says that an elemental dragon of Desaloth's caliber being sealed away could throw the elemental balance of law into jeopardy. We believe Sidir and vow to help. Attuning with the elements and entering the planes of the dragon world, we come face to face with the different prime dragons, defeating them and harvesting their Draco Scintilla. Only then can the dragon mark sealing away Desaloth be stopped and the master released. Desaloth awakens, a hulking amalgam of the different prime dragons, but his intentions are not as pure as we thought. Desaloth is a dragon of pure evil, planning to devour the elements of law and throwing the world's balance awry. We try to stop Desaloth before he escapes through the Dragon Gate, but he has near limitless power within this realm. He escapes and the elements of the world begin compounding on one another. Fire catches on the currents of air, making fire tornadoes. Air obliterates earth and creates a wasteland of sand. Earth gets swallowed by water, making murky swamps. The current high priests of the prime dragons on law feel the imbalance of Desaloth's arrival and gather together, calling upon the aid of us, Warlick and Galanoth. They explain who Desaloth is and why he needs to be stopped. We plead ignorance to being the one who freed him, but this is definitely our fault. To stop Desaloth, we'll need to find the reincarnation of the prime dragons and tutor them to make a new dragon mark that can seal away Desaloth again. We then travel to the different sections of the Etherstorm region to gather the new dragons, with the first one already having been born in the Firestorm. We travel to Airstorm afterwards, where we get a scene of Desaloth and Sidir talking about a potential traitor among the High Priest's council. With the guidance of Azure, who is the potion master, we gather the ingredients to make a concoction that might subdue Deseloth. Gathering the materials from an underground cave housing winged lemurs straight out of Avatar: The Last Airbender. We complete the spell required, but as Azure asks us to return to the other prophets for their knowledge on the final steps of the recipe, Galanoth asks to go with us, but Azure shares his elemental powers with us to secure our safe passage alone, while Galanoth needs to stay to help with this dragon slaying expertise. We walk out, but as soon as Azure is alone with Galanoth, he attacks him, trapping him in a vortex and knocking him out cold. The other prophets know nothing of any spell to subdue Deseloth, and as we return, neither Azure or Galanoth are to be seen. Panic ensues, because without the High Priest of Air, they wouldn't be able to realize the potential of the new Prime Dragons. Azure had an apprentice that might have been able to fill the role, but he disappeared alongside him. Frustrated, we swing our arms out, and the wind seems to bend to our will. The High Priests are shocked. They can feel the power of air flowing through us. Perhaps the power Azure shared with us might be enough to substitute. Battling through Waterstorm and seeing an ominous tentacle rising from the shore, we find a lair housing the remaining 3 dragon eggs that will hatch into the Prime Dragons. Killing the Deep Dweller Guardian, the dragons are born, but while migrating, the Prime Dragon of Earth is captured and corrupted by Deseloth. We then transition to Deseloth's lair, where the Dragon Slayer is jailed. The flying lemur, Omom, from the cave in Etherstorm, sneaks behind Galanoth. Azure's apprentice, Angst, communicates through Omom, assuring that he is on our side, and his master's betrayal is not something he knew of. Omom releases Galanoth, who prepares to strike at Deseloth. With a leap, Deseloth catches Galanoth's arm before he could plunge his blade into him, and in a show of pure power, he bites Galanoth's dominant arm off, like snapping a twig. Warlick manages to locate and teleport to Galanoth, saving him, but he is not able to graft his arm back on, because Warlick has already reached his limit before he would go insane from his overusage of mana. Traveling to Earthstorm and learning the secrets of the recorded history through the underground crystals, we find the corrupted Earth Dragon and purify her back to her original self. With all the dragons found, we are finally able to go to war with Deseloth and his army of frenzied elemental creatures. Now, before we go to war, we are presented with a choice by Sidir. We could either choose to serve good or evil, or we could betray our friends and side with Deseloth, who will definitely spare us if we help him. This choice leads up to our alignment in the upcoming war for Etherstorm, and the winning side will decide Deseloth's fate, either sealing him away, killing him, or letting him consume lore. This type of war event has been a regular occurrence in many releases. War in AQ Worlds functions by killing enemies, which drop medals. These medals can be turned in to further the war progress bar. Usually, the bar needs over 1 million medals collectively turned in by all players to be filled up. Wars come in different varieties. Progression wars unlock more parts of the map and story as the bar gets filled up, while a faction war will only have one winner and will decide the outcome of the story. From when this video is being recorded, the war of course ended over a decade ago, so we know the result. It ended up being the evil side which finished their bar first, so good thing our character was evil to begin with. Progressing up to Deseloth and battling him, at the time of release this was a very unique fight, where the different Prime Dragons would periodically buff your character, while Deseloth would unleash devastating attacks. But somewhere along the way, the fight got broken somehow, and now it has no special mechanics. We killed Deseloth, much to the dismay of the High Priests, who believed that Deseloth could be redeemed if he were to be imprisoned. But our character knows true evil when they see it. The Dravik judges our morals and strips away our air powers. Etherstorm is saved, but at the death of poor Omom. May her soul rest in peace. At least we can adopt her children as a pet. As Deseloth's carcass lies rotting, the Chaos Twins finds the dragon and Drakaf takes interest. He raises the skeletal remains as a Draco Lich, but what Drakaf doesn't know is that Deseloth's will is very much intact, but for now he'll serve in silence, but the time of the Desolich will come. I think this art is good, but not great. It is definitely hindered by me not having played during the active war, where the uncertainty in which direction the story would have gone in would have been a more memorable factor. The Deseloth fans really tried their damnness to make him win and destroy lore. Good thing that didn't happen. I'm definitely a sucker for the 4 elements, being a big fan of Avatar The Last Airbender, but it did get pretty formulaic going from zone to similar zone. But with the betrayals, the lore impact, and with the unique mechanics that have been lost to time in consideration, I think I'll throw it in B tier. It would have been A tier on release though, definitely. Evil having won the war, Gravelyn feels mighty confident. But the trauma of almost losing everything at the Doomwood invasion still lingers. She has vivid nightmares of her being tangled up, watching her father battle Artix, both being deeply tied to the darkness plane. This is totally not a marketing tactic for the officially licensed Toys R Us AQ Worlds toys. Not at all. Gravelyn consults her newly acquired staff containing Noxus's head. She exclaims that she doesn't really know anything about her father, and what he was like before becoming a Doom Knight. Noxus knew of Sepulchre's rise, back then going by Valen. Noxus tells Gravelyn that Sepulchre had his own dedicated vault in the necropolis, and that Sepulchre's helm is the key to enter. With newfound resolve, Gravelyn asks us to enter the necropolis and find the secrets of the vault for her. Traveling back to Doomwood, we are accompanied by Artix and Vale to the entrance. Entering the necropolis proper, we are halted by the Doom Knight Overlord guards. They see we possess the helm and let us pass through, but also issue us a challenge to take down one of the guards. The Doom Overlord was for the longest time one of the highest HP monsters in the game. Soloing it with the Undead Slayer class, which can stack up to 200 power against undead monsters, it still took me 11 minutes to take one down at my current level. But I got a cool sword for it. Inside the necropolis, we collect remnants of a diary written by Lore Master Achilles Whipcrick, who turned into an undead to document Sepulchre's life and unlife. Descending deeper and deeper into the necropolis, we start to assemble his story. Before Sepulchre, there was a man named Valen. He was a squire and close friend to a knight named Alden. They shared much, but also their love for a woman named Lunaria. They privately held a duel to ask for her hand in marriage. No one knew the outcome of the fight, but Alden would come to marry Lunaria. Valen and Alden lived under the rule of King Dithrix, Drakkar's father, a terrible tyrant who became more monster than man. They planned to overthrow Dithrix and were successful, eventually leading Alden to take the mantle as king, becoming Altion the Balanced. Dithrix returned to take revenge, kidnapping Lunaria. Altion, fighting a war on 2 fronts, couldn't afford to save Lunaria himself, entrusting it to Valen alone. He slayed countless Doom Knights, but was bested by Dithrix. On the verge of death, a mysterious stranger appeared, saving his life by giving him a Doom weapon and armor from the Darkness Realm that would fuse with his being and slowly take over his mind. The equipment has a will of its own and can only be destroyed with weapons of blinding light, like Artix's axe. Valen accepts the armor and becomes Sepulchre, killing Dithrix and saving Lunaria, but being outcasted by Altion for succumbing to the power of evil. Sepulchre created the Shadow Scythe to band together all servants of the Darkness Plane and to destroy the kingdom built by Altion. Lunaria, in a final plea to reach the heart of Sepulchre, confronted him, casting a brilliant light so effervescent that only the champion of light could produce such power. The armor peeled away from Valen, revealing the man inside, but the armor's free will attacked Lunaria, dealing a fatal blow as it clung back on Sepulchre. Reaching his vault and battling the 5-headed Dracolich guarding it, we uncover that it was just love letters and a strange tomb lying in there. The tomb belonging to none other than Queen Lunaria herself. The old ground collapses as we land smack dab in the middle of Sally's underground study room, where we see a corrupted Vordred being built up again. Sally doesn't want us to interrupt her, so she casts us down to the primordial depths of the necropolis, being the root of the undeath having spread all throughout Doomwood. Additionally, the air contains a deadly gas that will slowly kill us. We rummage through the depths and stumble across a green pasture protected by a dome. This is the last remnant of the forest that Doomwood used to be, protected by a guardian fairy. Eventually, Arctic realizes that we are lost in the depths and tries to hoist us up, only to be thrown into the depths himself by Sally. At the very bottom layer, we find a structural pillar holding up the necropolis from collapsing. We break it but not before Sally was able to complete Chaos Vordred. Not only that, but Gravelyn was also caught outside of the necropolis, waiting for our return. Gravelyn, feeling powerless and hopeless, mumbles under her breath that she wishes that her father was still here. The Tomb of Lunaria, which fell down during the collapse, hears her plea, and through the power of the previous Champion of Light, grants her wish. Sepulture appears, instantly demolishing Chaos Vordred. Gravelyn can feel that this is just a construct created by her wish, but Drakarth watches and decides to fulfill his role as the Champion of Chaos, and releases Sepulture's essence from his possession, granting the Tomb of Lunaria the power to fulfill Gravelyn's deepest desire, a world where Drakarth didn't kill Sepulture. This creates a new reality that sends us back in time to the start of the game, into the fabled AQW Worlds Zombies joke timeline from Doomwood Part 1. Look, this was 2012 and zombies were extremely popular. Arriving at the confrontation between Sepulture and Altion again, we wait with bated breath for Drakarth to appear, but he doesn't, and Sepulture kills Altion right then and there. Sepulture exclaims that he can now become the Champion of Darkness, only for his Doomblade to inform him that Altion isn't the Champion of Light as they thought. Death appears, wishing to take the soul of Altion away, but Sepulture has a new plan to find the champion. He destroys Death outside of his realm, and with no one to guide the souls to the afterlife, people will resurrect as zombies that will infect the world. Only beings of elemental powers would be immune. We escape, and now starts AQW Worlds War C. While battling zombie versions of every character that we love, let's talk about the other big event that was released alongside Doomwood Part 2, the legendary grind to rebuild the Blinding Light of Destiny from scratch. On release, this would be the hardest item to obtain in the game, and was estimated to take months to complete. First you needed to get the handle from completing Doomwood Part 1, and then you needed to forge the axe blades with metal. This is the easy part. With the basic axe complete, we need to imbue it with spirit orbs. And when Vordred said that the Blinding Light of Destiny had millions of spirit orbs, he meant it. To get spirit orbs, you'd need to turn in materials gained from undead creatures. The most popular farming spot being the underground caverns below Babylon, accessed from various locations around the town. To reforge the axe, you would need different tiers of spirit orbs. Regular spirit orbs being the lowest. 100 spirit orbs made up a loyal spirit orb. 50 loyal spirit orbs made up the bright aura. 25 bright aura made up the brilliant aura. And finally, you'd need to find the blinding aura that would reveal itself to heroes with a pure heart. In other words, it would be a really rare drop. Calculating the different orbs needed to forge the axe, that would be a total of 10,025,500 spirit orbs, and I'm not joking. Of course, we don't actually need to turn in materials to get between 5 and 20 spirit orbs for each turn in. That wouldn't be feasible in a lifespan. What we actually do is acquire about 10,000 spirit orbs to bless a metal of our choosing to create our own blinding light weapon, be that a sword, mace, bow, you name it. With our weapon we can do much easier quests, which depending on your weapon gave you thousands of spirit orbs per turn in, meaning that we can craft the other blinding weapons, which will in turn give us the blinding aura eventually with enough luck, and allow us to reforge the axe. With it being so time consuming to obtain, you'd get an achievement on your character page, and the weapon itself gives you a 51% damage increase against undead monsters. And the axe is also interactable to make all the players in the room shout "Battle on!" with the slick riff playing in the background. Totally worth it, but I couldn't be asked to get it for this video. Returning back to the zombie apocalypse, it seems that only Artex and us are left, with Sepulture coming to the realization that there's only one candidate left for being the Champion of Light. If you haven't guessed it yourself yet, the Champion of Light is Gravelyn, being the bastard child of Lunaria and Valen. Sepulture is clinging to his last shred of humanity, not to succumb to the Doom Equipment's whispers to kill his own daughter, but he bows down and starts a duel with Gravelyn. Sepulture begins defeating each of the remaining heroes easily before striking Gravelyn down, but he realizes what he is about to do and drops his sword. Perhaps Valen's heart is still in there in some form after all this time. Drakarth agrees, and proceeds to descend down and rip it out once again, killing Sepulture for a second time. Gravelyn, distraught with grief, unleashes her light powers in a true anime fashion and has a light show battle with Drakaf in the sky, while Sepulture's equipment rises on its own to fight us. The equipment alone is enough to overpower us when it hasn't been infected with chaos like the first time we fought it. But Gravelyn comes to the rescue, purifying the Doomblade to the blinding blade of fate, destroying the armor, in turn undoing her wish, sending us back to the depths of the necropolis. Gravelyn now knows her origins and who she really is, that being the rightful heir and Empress of the Shadow Scythe! With new vigor, she doubles down on her wish to see Drakaf's head on a pike and reinforces her army, recruiting Sally and making Noxus respect her. She even wishes for Vordred to be rebuilt, but with more doom this time. Escaping the collapsing underground and saving the remnants of the original forest, the Doomwood saga comes to a close, at least for the duration of the Chaos Saga. So, was this a worthy follow-up? I'd say so. It's shorter and less varied, but I feel like it closes the book on any unanswered questions and sheds some humanity on Sepulture, who doesn't get a lot of time to shine in AQ Worlds like he did in Dragon Fable. The zombies timeline is batshit crazy and way too over the top, but it fits in the context of being a what-if scenario that gets undone at the end. I'd give it an A tier, but it is an extension of the Doomwood saga, so Doomwood itself gets to stay in the S tier. This concludes part 2 of the retrospective. Things are really starting to heat up, and there's some real peak fiction coming up, so join me next time in the finale as we conclude the Chaos Saga. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.